you set up this still life in our studio, kind of nice and fancy. And then you have this spotlight next to it.
Yeah, so we're going to do two lighting setups. This is a little different than kind of the observational study that you did. We wanted to go ahead and start with this overcast study that we've been studying. So really look at the overcast lighting, and then turn on a direct light and see how it affects the scene and how we might take this overcast lighting and turn it into a direct light setup without kind of repainting the whole thing. So we're starting out here with overcast lighting. And you can see I'm keeping a really simple value structure. I've kind of really got two values because I really just wanted to figure out the composition early on, see what I was dealing with. And you can see here I'm going to start to adjust the composition a bit, reframe. But yeah, that's basically where I'm starting. So from here I'm going to start to actually take those darker values and lighten them up a bit and get into the composition a little bit more.
Is this kind of similar to what we introduced a couple of lessons ago, that the three value structure start?
Yeah, I've been finding that it's really helpful to start there overall in my painting. So because it doesn't take long, I like to start there. And you can see constantly throughout this painting, actually, I'm adjusting the composition. But overall, because I did that, I kind of understand where I really want to go with the painting and the composition.
And then, are you changing actual composition, or are you just correcting?
Just correcting.
Okay,
that's a great. Yeah. That's a great observation. Yeah, just correcting.
Great.
But yeah, overall, you can see I'm trying to stay really broad this time around. Really block in the big shapes. Pay attention to the big shapes, big value relationships, and big edges. I'm really just focusing on that, leaving the detail out overall.
So this is not nothing new in terms of a setup. This is just like how we've been focusing on with the diffused lighting setup. And,
yeah, very much so. I'd say one thing about this is it does definitely have a strong direction, because there is a window that's kind of off to screen left, that's off screen. That is casting the light, but it's generally it's a diffused light, definitely, because you can look at the quality of shadows, and I could see that there were really soft shadows happening in this overall.
Yeah, when you're painting something complex, I mean, I know you're keeping it very simple, but I can imagine it's always hard to bring simplicity to a complex shape, especially pig statue in this angle is kind of tough. Like there's a bit of a foreshortening happening with his arm. And how do you kind of deal with that stuff?
Yeah, I'm really squinting all the time. And I've found that the more I paint, the more I try to stay broad as long as I can and keep to really big shapes, and really squint a lot and really focus on the big relationships in the overall composition. I think especially in pig, it's really dangerous when you really look hard at pig. You get caught up in all the little detail and shapes and the nostrils and the eye, and there's this desire to really get in there and paint that stuff. But I try to hold off as long as I can, painting those things. One thing that I think was a choice that I made is if you look at, for instance, the crocodile and how it kind of the shadow side of him kind of gets lost into the chalkboard almost.
Yeah.
I'd say that was kind of really looking and observing their relationships, and wanting compositionally for there to soften that edge with values a little bit. That was definitely kind of a visual choice that I made to make the painting a little bit stronger. I felt like
kind of grouping, like we talked about in the lesson 2 or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Losing that edge.
Yeah, I mean, this is also like you are trying to kind of like, I'm squinting at your painting right now, and then you really kind of start to lose the definition of these objects.
Yes.
Like we talked about quite a bit of a grouping, but I know it's one of those things that we want to keep going back to like how you can kind of group in this particular sense, in a particular exercise, you're grouping the value of it so that like if you squint, the shadow side of all the objects kind of blend into one.
Yeah. And if you remember if we look back at my original block-in, that was always the idea from the beginning, was to kind of group the light side of all these objects together, and let the shadow kind of envelop all of that stuff. And really, I think it abstracts in a nice way. And as you lay drawing on top of all those big shapes, I think it becomes clear what the objects are. But I do like losing those edges and staying true to that original block-in that I had. And
when you say drawing here, that's more of like it's not so much of a line drawing, but you're basically talking about the actual accuracy of shapes that you're observing.
Yeah, I mean, I think we always talk about placing, trying to do more with less. And I think a lot of times here, you really don't have these definite edges to place, to really describe form. So I feel like, when you place an eyeball or an ear or a shadow of an ear or an arm, that's really to help explain a plane change or one shape laying over the other shape. So the placement in drawing, when I say drawing, kind of sitting on the form, having it sit on the form and do the right things, really are the few things that you have to help describe the form of an object.
Yeah, it's the tricky part for a lot of people, and I know even for us too, but like you want to sort of figure out the line drawing first, but not that there's anything wrong with it, but kind of forcing yourself to stay with the planes as opposed to line kind of forces you to sort of see the object in this three-dimensional space and how it's reacting to the light, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So now you're getting pretty close to the end of diffuse lighting, and whoa.
Yeah, so this is where we're starting to use adjustment layers.